Hey!
How's it going?
Hello.
Is there a theme song to any of this?
Hi.
It's UNTV, TV with the unsupervised nerds. UNTV.
It sounds like we are creating a TV station or a TV channel.
I especially love the shrug at the end of it. That's the perfect ending.
Like,
All right, so what are we doing here today?
we are talking about the new Disney Plus Marvel show, WandaVision.
And yeah, how's everyone feeling about it? We watched the first 2 episodes that came out yesterday. I'll date this slightly. Should we go around?
Sure, why don't you start?
All right. I was probably the one most anticipating this show and really all the Disney Plus Marvel shows, but this is one of the ones I was most excited for as soon as Disney Plus announced them all. So I was pumped. And it's definitely different than I expected because I thought it was going to be a little more fast paced and jumping around with the eras a little more. So I'm pleasantly surprised with how it's turned out. I love that it seems like we're going to be getting a bit of a slow burn. And I'm very curious about a lot of the things that are going on right now.
Did you just say jumping around with the arrows?
Eras.
Eras. That makes a lot more sense. I was trying to figure out what arrows you were talking about.
Oh, you know, Hawkeye's cameo in there when he was shooting all the arrows.
Did you not see the arrows? They were everywhere. That's funny. I enjoyed it. I feel like I had a lot of questions, which is obviously the point. And I love the supporting cast. Basically, everyone is fantastic. Yeah, so for the most part, I love it. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Okay.
Cake is mine.
I like it. I was the opposite of you, Sky. I did not care for it before I watched it. I didn't want to watch it. And I really, really liked it. I want to see more.
I'm glad I made you watch it just for this.
Yeah, no, now it's your fault. I have lots of questions, but yeah, I'm into it. I realized I hadn't seen the trailer until after I watched the episodes. So I had no idea what's gonna happen. Now I've seen it, but yeah.
That's actually a good quick question for everybody. Has anyone aside from me seen the trailers to this show?
Yes. Yeah, I watched the trailers.
I have now.
And the trailers, maybe I misunderstood the trailers, but the feeling I got from the trailers was that they're just going to be living in the 50s for the entire thing, which is clearly not the case. Clearly, I think they're going to be progressing through the eras. I don't know. The whole thing was confusing. I think I've changed my mind.
So the second trailer, I think, unless I'm wrong, the second trailer is the one I saw today. It shows you like through the eras. It shows you a lot more than what the first trailer was showing you.
Okay.
You see a lot more. Which I was like, oh god, no, that's a lot of things I did not want to know now. But
yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you hadn't watched the trailer, it's probably best not to at this point. But Kate, how did you feel about it all?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Did not watch the trailers, as I've already said. I don't really know much about Wanda or Vision, except for that one Spider-Man movie. Right?
No.
Not Spider-Man? What movie am I thinking of?
Okay, so far they were introduced in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Then they were in Captain America's Civil War, which is actually where Tom Holland's Spider-Man was introduced. Then they were in Avengers: Infinity War, where Vision died. And then they were in Endgame, where Wanda comes back after the snap situation, but Vision doesn't.
So clearly, I know absolutely nothing about them. And so I had no expectations other than, yeah, this looks like 50s era, which I'm a very strong feminist, but man, I love the 50s. I love the costumes. I love the way they talk. I love the music. It's fantastic.
Like yakety yak though. Like it's just stuck in my head all day.
All day. Yeah, so that whole theme of these first couple episodes, loved it. And I think even like the food choices that they were listing, the recipe cards, like they're such throwback dishes that people just don't make anymore. So it's just neat little details like that. Loved. I really enjoy Elizabeth Olsen. I think she is fantastic. I think she does a really good job. And like Munch was saying, the supporting actors, most notably the boss's wife. I feel really bad. I don't remember the actress. Thank you, Joe Rupp. Such a good role for her to play, and the neighbor too. Very funny. Yeah, thanks. I don't know names of anybody. I'm just like, yeah, I like her from that other thing that she did. You know. Yeah. So overall, thoroughly enjoyed it. Was thoroughly confused.
Yeah, I think that's about how we're supposed to be feeling after this first one, or first two, I guess.
And they both ended with fairly big like cliffhangers, questions, and even like the question from the end of the first episode was not addressed in the second one. So what's going on? Are they living in a TV episode?
That's actually one thing I want to bring up too, because I feel like the ending of the second episode almost it ruins every theory I had after the first one, basically. Because the first one seems to end like, oh, this is all the Truman shows. This is happening to them. But then at the end of the second one, we see Wanda has some degree of control over what's happening. So how much of this is her doing versus is it something happening to her?
Well, wasn't there a voiceover at the end of the second episode where someone was saying, "Who's doing this to you?"
It was the voice on the radio.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I wasn't clear at the end of the second episode if it was really showing that Wanda has control over whatever this situation is, or if that's just one of her powers. Can she turn back time?
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to answer for the MCU because we've never seen it in there, but if we were to get into comics, she could literally alter reality in any way she wants to.
Right. So based off of that, I don't think she's in control in any way with what's going on.
Yeah, one of the key stories, I'll bring this up. I don't think it's going to be a massive thing for the show, but it is sort of referenced at least. It's semi-based off a story called House of M, apparently, where Wanda loses her mind and essentially creates another universe where everyone gets some kind of wish come true. So, like, Wolverine gets his memories back, and Spider-Man's able to stop being Spider-Man, and all these other things. I don't remember what all of them were because it was this giant thing for the whole universe. But what's kind of interesting here, I don't think it's going that far because clearly we're not seeing all these characters. But there was a reference to it in the first episode when she's serving the dinner. When she's pouring wine, the wine is not entirely House of M, but it's close enough with Maison du Mépris. I'm going to hope that's good enough pronunciation. I'm getting a nod from Zoe. That's something.
I'll take it.
So it is House of and then an M word. Now, what does mépris mean?
Good question.
Putting you on the spot.
Bear with me. I have it in my head. I just can't think of the word right now, and people are going to be mad.
No one would be.
It's I can't have it's like you despise someone. Is that basically the idea? But I'm sure there's a word. Which would help if I could. No, it's.
It's some kind of negative emotion towards someone.
Oh, contempt. Contempt is the word I was looking for.
That's real interesting.
I
was thinking of the movie, and I could not think of the movie.
There was a lot of interesting product placement or whatever you want to call it with those ads, which I thought were really great, like the Stark Industries toaster, and then the Hydra watch, which I really enjoyed. And it's like, who put those ads in there? Because I don't think Wanda would be doing that.
So Cake, I'm pretty sure, hasn't seen this, at least a good chunk of this. But Elson did just recently watched a bunch of the MCU movies. Not quite all of them yet.
Like
But
99%, okay? Let's
yeah,
just call it.
she's at
It's
least seen all
100.
this.
It's basically
She's seen at least all the ones with Vision and Wanda. Did you get what the two references were with those commercials?
No.
So, Zoe, do you? I don't know your familiarity with all the MCU movies.
I'm not sure what the toaster was, apart from the fact that it was a Stark toaster. The watch was a Strucker watch, right? So that's the guy who actually tortured them.
Torture gave them their powers. I don't know exactly how the giving powers situation worked, but yeah, that's exactly it. It's the guy who was in Hydra who gave them their abilities, both her and her brother. But the Stark one, especially with the blinking light and the sound of it and everything, their origin is essentially they wanted revenge on Tony Stark because a Stark bomb blew up their city and killed their parents. And it's actually that blinking light on the toaster.
I wrote down bomb question mark.
Yeah, that blinking light on the toaster is even the first hint of color we get in the series at all, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, it's just a little subtle thing, but that's, I think, the only color in the entire first episode until we back out of the TV.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. So what?
So can I just make a quick point?
Yeah.
Would it maybe be? Oh, hello. Would it maybe be a play on words with the Hydra watch, like subliminal message that Hydra is watching you?
Like Hydra might be behind all this?
Mm-hmm.
That could be interesting.
I don't know. Just
Hydra is possibly still alive in them. I don't know. That gets complicated, but yeah, they could definitely be doing some evil stuff behind the scenes.
I don't know. Just what I had.
Hypothetically, where does this show fit into the universe and the timeline? I know it's kind of probably a hard question to answer, but I don't understand.
So I could actually say fairly easily that it takes place after Endgame. We can't say exactly how long after Endgame, but it would involve a bit of a spoiler that I know because of some casting stuff to explain how I know this for sure.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So definitely after.
Yeah. There's also two characters. I'm not gonna get into who, but there's two people who have been put into casting lists and stuff who we haven't seen on the show at all yet. Although I do think one of them was the male voice we heard on the radio and at the end of the second episode.
Interesting.
How did you guys feel during the dinner scene when the entire tone shifted and Mr. Hart starts choking and his wife starts going, "No, stop! No, stop!"
What was happening there? Did Wanda cause him to choke so that he could stop asking questions? Because that's how I read it.
Kate, you seem like you got something to say.
That's how I read it too, and it kind of goes...
Zoe, finish your thought.
Sorry, I'm super delayed, so people are talking over me. That's just my fault for being delayed, so it feels like I am behind. I was saying that's how I read it as well, and it feels like that's kind of where my theory was, which is kind of it's a reality that she's created to kind of get her mind off what is happening to her, maybe being tortured or something's happening. Which is potentially what the guy was like screaming at her, like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And then she's choking him, basically.
And Cake, what were you thinking?
Well, see, I think I was like everybody else, that I assumed it was either like the Truman Show and everybody else was in on this whole ruse, or it was a simulation of some type. But then when the boss and his wife started asking those questions repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly, well, a simulation wouldn't do that. That just doesn't make sense. So it can't be a simulation. And it obviously then isn't the Truman Show situation either.
Because the
So
Truman Show, I think they wouldn't even ask those questions.
exactly.
Mhm.
They just go along with it, right? So I don't know. Like it almost seems like if you also look at the scene from the second episode when the voice starts coming out of the radio and Dottie's whole demeanor and tone changes. She gets really soft and she's just like, "Who is that? Who are you?" Like she's very confused for a few seconds.
Yes.
It's
Uh,
it's like these are just other real people that have also been put in the same situation and told a story.
yeah, I kind of, especially with the second one with Dottie, I really felt it was a situation like, what if they were all somehow brought into this place? They're real people from somewhere else and almost like brainwashed or under a spell or something. And it
Mhm.
was the stuff over the radio kind of woke Dottie up for that moment. But then as soon as that stopped, she was just normal again.
Yeah, back to her program, right? So I think during the dinner party, I don't know if one of the guests got on the wrong line of questioning and it kind of just like put a glitch in the system
Hmm.
and they couldn't stop asking and that's when the system started killing him. So he would stop asking these questions.
That's a real interesting one.
Because it was literally a whole strawberry. Like, it was just weird. The whole thing was weird. I don't know. I just don't understand who caused it and why everyone just sat there awkwardly watching him choke to death.
Until Wanda got super serious and directed Vision to help him.
Mm-hmm.
So see, I have the other incident from the second episode where you're talking about that it could be people being woken up. My theory, back to what I was saying about maybe her having created a reality, is that this person is just this projection of her, like kind of subconscious, and the voice coming, like trying to be like, who's doing this to you? What's happening? Is waking Wanda up more than like whoever this person is who doesn't exist. I think it could be either. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that definitely set up a lot of questions in ways where they could go in so many different directions with them, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about with the show right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, they both episodes posed a lot more questions than they answered. I think number one being like if a robot chews gum, it'll just completely mess them up.
oh, that's how a robot
course.
gets drunk.
That's
Yeah,
how a robot gets drunk. So a robot doesn't eat food or drink water, but yet he sleeps at night.
He has to be
Yeah.
that's just when he gets plugged in. It's fine.
Please talk about his acting abilities playing a robot
Yes.
being drunk. It was amazing. Like, so good. That, like, physical comedy of him trying to walk up the stairs, I was literally laughing. So good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was honestly like shocked at how good Paul Bettany's comedy timing is. Like, I've only seen him in drama stuff, and I was just amazed. I was like,
Yeah.
this is just the best thing I've ever seen.
Very good. Yes.
Oh yeah, I even love it when the gum finally gets out of him and he makes a joke and he's like, "Oh, I'm not as funny without this in me."
So that whole fundraiser, it was weird, right?
For the
Like,
It was
children.
creepy.
Children.
So creepy.
number one, they're all chanting for the children. Number two, there's no children to be seen.
No.
And number three, based off of how big this library is in this town, it's a massive city. But yet there's like 20 people that show up to this fundraiser and they said that the tickets were sold out.
Yeah, it was weird.
There's a lot of questionable things, but yeah.
Like that does really lend itself to Zoe's idea that it is just a completely made up place in her mind because it doesn't make
Like,
sense.
what the children reminded me of, and I could be completely off route for that, but it reminded me of like Stroker just saying like the twins when he's talking about them in
Oh yeah.
whichever one it is, when he's like, oh, you know, like the twins. And it felt like to me the children was just kind of that. But she also gets pregnant at the end, so it could also mean something about her children or her child.
Right.
I don't know. It was creepy.
It
So
was. Does anybody have any thoughts on the bee man?
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask about what? Why? Why is a beekeeper coming up with a sewer?
That's where the bees are.
No, they're not. That's like literally the one place bees aren't ever.
Just the
I
one
lo-
place?
Yes.
I love
Just
how
the one
creepy
place,
that
though.
moment
Nowhere
was.
else. Okay.
Mainly
Like
because
the-
you don't see his
Yeah,
face.
it was weird.
Yeah, the show kind of dips into like horror tones. Like it's never outright horror, but it's just this stuff that feels like off, that it's unsettling, and I love that it's getting into these different things.
I wasn't sure, Sky, if you would have some insight into comic books, if that's like a
This B-Man?
villain or a character. Is he related to Ant-Man or the Wasp?
Okay, so I don't have an insight into the character himself, but I do have an insight into what was on his back, because we have a design on there for sword, which is like shield, but in the comics it is shield in space. Basically, it's like protecting the Earth from incoming aliens. Now they have gone on record, and we don't know anything about sword in the MCU yet. We haven't actually seen it, but we've just seen the logo. But they have gone on record as to sword is going to stand for something different in the MCU than it does in the comics. So it might not have anything to do with space, but it still might. We don't know. So it could be that aliens are involved somehow.
Is that the symbol that you see like on a notepad at the desk when it pans out at the end?
Yes.
You know,
That is-
yeah.
You see
Oh,
it there.
okay.
You see it in the background, I think, behind the TV, and you see it on the plane, on the helicopter
Yeah.
that she sees.
That's the other one I was going to bring up, the little toy with the
I-
first real thing she sees in color.
I had no
The
idea what
one-
that was.
The one with the star colors. It's a helicopter with the star colors and the logo of Sword, which was very confusing.
I know, because I thought it was Stark, and I'm like, well, that's not Stark, so...
If he
Who
was
is
really
it?
small, he could be in that.
Or maybe they're just really big.
Maybe he's Ant-Man and has just gone into like that size. Just a tiny
Isn't
toy
he,
helicopter.
isn't he dead?
Does anyone really
Yeah.
ever die in the MCU? Like, really?
If anyone does, I hope it's Iron Man.
Before I move on to something, does anyone else have anything more to say about the beekeeper?
No.
Okay,
Other
just wanted-
than it gave off like definite vibes of like the Mothman from The Magicians. If anyone else has watched that
yeah, I
show.
could totally see that.
Just like super creepy. Like I don't like bugs. I know bees are fantastic, but they almost look more like wasps. Like I don't know, they're just creepy.
Okay, so a very quick thing. I want to move back to the idea of if this is a simulation. I thought it was really interesting the way in the whole first episode, everything to do with Vision's job, where he was just trying to figure out what this place is actually doing, but it's just computing stuff. So if this is a simulation, what if this is why it's a simulation? Like it's the Matrix. It's using the computing power of their minds, or Vision's at least. And maybe, because theoretically Vision's dead, Wanda's being used to create Vision even though he's not around, to use him for the computations. This is a very long stretch that if it happened, this is me predicting something amazingly, but it's probably not this, but
That's
I won't say it's impossible, but it seems impossible.
And I just say as a side note, how he wonders about what people do in an office is how I feel about anyone with an office job.
yes.
It's like, what do you do? What is this?
We're just computing. We're just, computing our inputs and outputs. Yep.
Honestly, you could just tell me whatever job you do, and I would probably like, yeah, no, I don't know. She just sits at a desk. I have no idea. And I'm sorry.
It's quite alright. Okay.
completely random thought. The one other thought I have that definitely lends itself to being a virtual reality or something is that the neighbor, and I feel bad I can't remember the character's
Agnes?
name. Thanks. Agnes constantly complains about her husband. You never see him. He doesn't come to the fundraiser.
That actually reminds me of another thing I wanted to bring up. How is everyone feeling about Agnes? Like, I kind of got vibes that she might be in on whatever's going on.
Oh, she totally is. I wrote down the thing for in the second episode. She's just like, I've heard things about you, and like, who are you, kind of thing.
So
She's definitely prying. She's prying. She's trying to find information.
She also straight up just called her the main character or something.
I think that she is Wanda's handler in this situation.
Ooh.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, she showed up right away, like, weaseled her way into her life.
I mean, she gave her plans, so that's something.
That is.
I'm
I
actually
also thought-
completely loving her, no matter what her position is in this too.
Oh, she's great.
I'm wondering if the fact that Wanda was wearing pants in the second episode means anything at all. I realize that pants shouldn't be that big of a deal, but in
No,
the 50s, they were.
It's the 60s in the second one. That's
Yeah.
what it means. I'm pretty sure.
I
Yep.
is
Still
dumb.
wearing
Thank
subtle
you.
slits, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's-
that, and her hair isn't in curls so much anymore, and it's just
The
very
whole-
small things.
The set is slightly different. Like the kitchen looks different and all of that.
Oh, I just thought I was going
Depends.
crazy.
No, when
Not
you
yet.
so far it's looking like a show where if you notice that something seems weird, there's probably a reason for it, which is one of the things I'm loving about it.
So if they're just doing a new decade every episode, there's just going to be like 5 episodes?
There's going to be 9 episodes, so I guess we'll go into the
But
future.
it's only 2020,
It's-
Sky. 2021, Sky. They
go
can't
to the
film in the
3000s.
future. How do they know
Why
what the
not?
clothes? How do they know what the clothes are going to
Wait.
look like?
If we go from the 50s to 2020, isn't that like 8 episodes anyway? Or 8 decades?
No, the 50s was like 50 years ago.
Sorry.
Yeah, that would be 8 episodes.
No one tells
I use math on you guys.
No, the 80s were like 20 years ago. Right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so they could totally get us to the 2020, and in MCU
To, like-
years, it's 2023 or 2024 because they're 5-year time gap weirdness. So they could totally do something like that, and then maybe the last 2 episodes are like a 2-parter in real time kind of thing.
They're going to
Maybe.
Harry Potter it, just wander around a forest for half a movie.
Yeah, you got it.
That's what being in real time
That's
means. yeah.
exactly what's gonna happen.
I hate that so much.
All right, well, before we get too far down the Harry Potter train, anyone have any final comments before we close out the UNTV?
I'll let other people go first because I have a couple just really quick things I want to rocket through.
Sorry, I have nothing to add.
So,
Oh, yeah. Was that David Schwimmer just with a mustache?
No, but it really looks
that's
like
what I
him.
thought.
It did, yes.
I thought it was if David Schwimmer was playing Luigi, which I actually think I snapped 2 of you about this.
Yeah. And when you sent me that snap, I had no idea what you were watching. I legitimately thought you were watching like an old timey TV show, and I'm like, you have a weird taste in television.
Perfect.
Yeah, I looked at that snap and went, I don't know what he's talking about, and completely, literally forgot about it. Anyways,
This is
so-
why no one responds to me.
I actually have a couple things. Yeah, I have a couple things. I don't have answers to, but I wanted to talk about a couple design things that came up. Like Vision's tie in the first episode looks like a design for something. I don't know if it's like in like a clue for something. And the cabinet design from the second episode looks potentially like the Mind Stone or some form of something that ties to Vision.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing with the fact that when we're seeing Vision, he has the Mind Stone in him, and that's destroyed at this point. So even more reasons why. How is Vision anything right now?
How is Vision anything?
I don't think he's real.
Interesting.
Are any of us? Do we want to get down that line of thinking?
Maybe for the second episode of this.
We'll put that on.
I was also confused as to why they were so concerned about fitting in and looking like they belong and like tricking people. Like,
Because
Like-
everyone wants to fit in.
Yeah, no, but that's a good point, Kate, because They know they don't belong, but then why aren't they questioning why they are there? Where should they be that they're not concerned about being?
Yeah, like there's a weird line there that I don't understand.
Oh,
Because they are extremely concerned about fitting in.
that actually reminds me, there's something with the second episode that the whole magic show and everything is about. The audience just wants to feel like they know the answer, even if it's not the right one, and how that might play into how we're interpreting the show. Like maybe it's giving us clues to assume we know what's happening, but there's actually some other magic happening, which is
Like, are we wondering if she's trying to trick them, maybe? Trying to trick whoever's trying to find the information, just kind of pretending like this is the real thing. This is the fake magic I'm giving you, not who I actually am. Let's pretend we're totally normal though.
And actually, back to that match. So it's one of the things I want to bring up. I got a couple lines that I just had to say because these are hilarious. But my favorite from the second episode being when they're doing the magic show and Vision pulls the hat through himself and some mirrors pop out and just someone in the audience is just like, is that how mirrors work? And the other person, and Anya from Buffy is just like, shut up, Beth.
And she plays Dobby so well. I'm really happy to see Emma Caulfield in something. I think that was a really good casting choice.
And Kick.
I was disagreeing.
So a couple other lines I just want to bring up. One is when they do the little rewinding time sequence after the beekeeper situation, the double use of the same line of Vision, is this really happening? First referring to her being pregnant, and then second time seemingly referring to what's happening with time and everything around them. And I just love it. I'm a sucker for these things in a kind of movie or TV show when it's like, oh no, it's the exact same line, the exact same reading, but now that we have this, it feels like it's a whole new context.
Definitely, yeah. That was an interesting line when we all of a sudden realized she was pregnant, and then to go through that rewind, and it has a completely new meaning.
I have one more line that, speaking of quotes from the second episode, is just towards the end when he's like, "Oh, the magician doesn't reveal his secrets. You know, he trusts his assistant," and Wanda says, "And she's not talking."
We could
I
probably
feel like
read
they're
something
trying
to that.
to look into some, and it feels like something she's heard, someone that's trying to get her to talk.
Interesting.
And final line I'm going to bring up, the highlight for me of episode 1, when they're talking about the heart that was on the calendar, when they finally have come to terms with what the heart was, Mr. and Mrs. Hart. And Wanda's just like, you move at the speed of sound and I could make a pen float through the air. Who needs to abbreviate?
It was good. The delivery was really good on that too.
Elizabeth Olsen's delivery of like everything, especially everything where she is being the sidekick with the whole magic act, just adorable. I absolutely loved her so much.
Yeah, like she really nailed just like the whole way of speaking to make it sound like she's a 1950s housewife. And I'm probably not phrasing that sentence correctly, but you know what I mean? Like they spoke differently back then, and she's just like nailed it. It's very, very good. Yeah, like the inflection that they use. Perfect.
And my final fun fact, and then I'm out of things I wanted to be sure to say, is when we do, at the end of the first episode, when we pan out and see that there are credits for an actual TV episode that someone from Sword is presumably watching of all the WandaVision stuff, the first credit we get is the director, who is Abe Brown in these credits. And this is something I didn't pick up on. This is something I saw something else that commented on this, because there's no way in hell I would have put this together. Abe Brown is actually one of the students in Peter Parker's class in Spider-Man Homecoming.
And I can't possibly just be coincidence, but what does it mean?
I don't know. I heard at least one thing where someone was like, well, apparently he didn't get snapped by Thanos, so he's 5 years older than all of the other people from Spider-Man. So maybe he's become a professional director or something. Who's to say?
So Spider-Man the bad guy.
That's what all this means. Yes.
Spider-Boy's bad.
Is that what we're ending this on?
That's the message we're ending with today. So thank you all for tuning in to UNTV. where we have discussed the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. And I think we're all excited to see what episode 3 holds.
Yay!
When does that come out?
Fridays. Friday. Well, it's for Zoe actually. It's midnight Thursday nights, and for us it's 2 a.m. on
Ooh.
Friday morning.
Friday morning.
Ha.
So yeah, I think we're going to continue on this little special recap show just to talk about our latest obsession.
Yay!
All right, bye,
So
guys.
much fun. Bye.
This has been UNTV with unsupervised nerds. It's UNTV.